Who do you think knows better, the client or the artist? Obviously the artist, but why am I bringing this up? I'm gonna give you an example. Today my client said they wanted a piece on their lower arm, right? Just the lower arm. I said, do you want to sleeve eventually? Like, what's the plan moving forward? It's always good to know the direction you're going in. She said she wanted to sleeve, even though she only asked for the bottom arm piece. I took the initiative to draw an entire outside sleeve for the tattoo. A lot of reasons I did this. One, it seems like that's the direction that she wants to go in anyway. Two, if I plan the whole thing out, I'm not going to do something I can't come back from. It makes it easier on me down the road. Three, if I just do a little bit more work and I show her the full potential of what this thing could look like, we get a better result, we get more sessions, we get client retention. So I'll try to pick up on these key components in the consultation, and I'll take the initiative and I'll draw extra, or I'll draw a whole sleeve, or I'll show them the possibility. I feel a big disconnect in the client-artist relationship a lot of times just comes from not knowing. So I feel like it's our job to show them what they don't know. Why am I holding a Nerf gun? Because we have fun at the shop. So we're gonna go with the full sleeve concept, the whole outer image, which I'm thrilled about. I love that it kind of like tells a story. We have these like psychotic, crazy townspeople on the bottom, which goes into the castle, the architecture, to kind of give it a setting, right, where this is taking place. And then we have our Mad King on top. I mean, he looks like a great leader to me. And the townspeople remind me of everyone that works here at the shop. Just complete psychopath idiots. Not Joe, but everyone else, I would say. So we're gonna start on the bottom, work our way up. We're gonna be doing a lot of small, creepy faces today, which is just gonna be a blast. And then we'll keep our castle relatively simple but dark, like enough to get the message across that it is a castle, but not too detailed because it will be a background image. I really want to draw the focus to the faces. So really, you guys have heard me say this before, but the theme with these small faces is just going to be contrast. Primarily just like the black. I don't want these things to look muddy. I want them to look nice and defined. So I'm choosing my black wisely. We got it in the mouth and the nostrils here. There's even some areas on like the reference that I'm bumping it up a little bit, the nose being one of them. Like in the reference, it has a pretty light gray on like the underbelly of the nose. I'm making it a little darker than in the reference. So I want these shades and values to last. With it being a smaller tattoo, we're fighting against that a little bit, just in terms of like aging over time. So you're really going to be looking at black, dark gray, and open skin. These like character marks on the side of the smile I'm going to make nice and defined. In the reference, there's a lot of like light grays, and maybe I'll brush over the teeth and hit some of those light grays, but most of them I'm going to ignore. I'm going to get my dark tones in and then pretty much leave it negative skin. So you can see I'm building this cheek up here. Kind of doing a pick and flick on the bottom off here just to really define the shape it's making. I feel like with the smaller pieces, like these smaller faces, smaller portraits, I'll tend to like over define things. Where with bigger areas, you can leave it a little bit more loose. But just to try to compensate for things spreading over time, like I'm really defining that shade there. And I feel like this helps the longevity of the tattoo. I'm gonna brush over it. I'm just kind of building this up in a crosshatch to avoid, directional pattern. And then I just want to tuck this jaw back a little bit. So I'll make that part gray. The skin kind of stretches right here and then creates that like taut skin outside of the face. So I want to put the focus back on the chin and kind of the skin outside the face, and it starts to narrow the face, right? We're darkening the outside to kind of push that in the background. Also, this is like a round image, right? So we can come to the outside here and kind of pick and flick in, and this will help accentuate the roundness. It's that like 3D effect. I'm just kind of defining this outer line so that I can pick and flick off of it. Cool. Got a little eyebrow in here. Then we have the eye socket, so I'm going to darken that so it looks a little more sunken in. Separate it from the forehead. And as you can see, everything's pretty simple. Everything should be intentional. You should know like why you're putting a shade in a certain area. So this is like pretty much the build of the face, what you guys can see. I'm gonna bump some of the tones just for fun now. Like I'll put a little shade in here, very light. But these are almost like the fun details now. They're like details that I'm not necessarily gonna count on in the future. But I wanted to make sure I had a strong base, which I do. Feel confident in that. Looks good. My darks are like where they need to be, which is gonna hold this piece up over the years. So it's here in the cheek. It's the mouth, the nostrils, and I might revisit these areas just to make sure the black is strong. Like I said, it's our foundation. This is what is holding up the piece. Even over defining some areas. And then once I have that in, you kind of see me start to work on top of it. So like right now I'm just kind of making everything a similar tone in the shadows. There was some difference with this lighter part, so I'm just kind of like dulling it out a little. Make it a little more simple. We have these two shadows coming off the nose that I'm just going to re-hit to make sure those are looking smooth, cohesive together. We have a little one off here. I'm going to brush a big shade off this kind of coming up because it dips in. And this is like a lighter gray. And then you'll see me just kind of like going through and sharpening some of the details. Give it like a little lip line. Especially areas that might have solid black, I'll just go back and check if everything's nice and sharp. Let's turn it over to this piece here. And really the pattern is kind of set. You guys saw the first one finished. We're going to we're going to define the outside. Alright, so you can see we got a lot of these faces done. I'm going to take you guys through this center face so you can kind of see. First things first, we got the jaw line mapped out. It's nice that all this is surrounded by a black background because it helps frame out the faces really well. And then they're small, we're putting these high contrast in the faces. So we're gonna kind of start with the darkest parts. And this, it's kind of this little gap underneath the lip. So we're gonna implement our dark parts first and then go right over them to our next lightest gray. And as we go over the original shade, it will darken with. So now I just implemented the new shade and I was able to hold on to the dark shade underneath. You guys have seen me use this method over and over and over again. It applies to small spaces as well. Now we have these big shadows kind of cutting the cheeks and defining the chin. So I'm going to be shading down off this line that I marked, almost in a pick and flick, and what that's going to do, it's going to leave this small negative space gap in between the chin and like where I'm shading. So it's like shade, light, dark, and this is going to mimic like a reflective light, like light bouncing up, and it's going to help keep our face separated from the background. So same thing here, we're going to be flicking down, and like where I have marked tends to be the darkest part of the shadow, and that is why we're flicking down. So it creates just a little extra indentation with the needle and just makes it just a touch darker. And as you can see, creates a sharp look, which I like in the high contrast piecing. And also with the small, it makes it really sharp and defined. You can see I'm building this with each time I go over it, I'm kind of pulling it down. There's this kind of crevice here. I'm gonna flick out from there. So now I'm gonna connect our chin shade to our cheek. So I'm gonna flick down from the line. I'm just going to continue that motion up the kind of like lip line, flicking away. And this is going to keep the outside of this face a little lighter. It's almost like I'm fading out towards the background. Now I'm cross-hatching. Cool, so let's just fill up that area and stay separate from our background. I want a little less of a fade, more just a true value in there, so I'm going to do small circles instead of the pick and flick. So just here to fill it in, make it all the same shape, just circles, circles. Cool, got a good cheek in there. Do the same thing to the other side. Since it'll just be going the reverse way. I'm still flicking off the line, the stencil line. And as I'm getting these in, it's really starting to define the face, you know, add an expression. That's what we want. Each one of these faces is going to be defined by its little expression. Back to the circles. Just to smooth it out. Create a little less of a fade. More of like a universal tone. Dip into a lighter gray. Just because we're almost there. I don't want too drastic of a change. I might even just start going over the whole thing here. I'm going to flick off the jaw just to make sure the background is nice and defined. And then just kind of come in here, pick the corners with a little true black, a little ultra black, just to make sure it stays separate. Now we'll move into the mouth and define this lip line here. Just dipping my black a little bit into the shading solution. Just want to kind of create a little gray area here just to show where the lip ends. And then I'm going to start lining the inside of the mouth. And the teeth, just the top of the teeth.
I don't want like hard black lines in between the teeth. And really I'm just gonna make the whole mouth a pretty dark gray, if not black. From the top teeth, I'm gonna flick down. Just kind of reinforcing that defining line of where the mouth ends and the teeth begin. I'm moving a little fast, but you know, you could go slow, get the same effect. And then from the bottom, flicking up. And I'm using black, straight black. And now the edges of the mouth, the inner mouth, I'm going to make a little darker. So I'm going to be flicking out from the sides, which will give the center of the mouth a lighter look. Same thing on this side. When you get something black with the 3RL, you definitely have to go over it a couple times. But we want to get it in there enough that we're not losing. Cool. Give the mouth in there. And then just flick up just a little bit onto the lip to kind of make the whole lip a gray. Just a light gray. I'm going to define the sides here. Make sure the edge of the mouth is crisp. The gums, I'm just going to outline the bottom of the top lip and just kind of scribble a light gray in there just so we can see that they're not the teeth. If you want, you can, here, let me define this a little more. Talked about kind of over defining things. We really want to pay attention to what our key components are of the face. I'm going to emphasize those. So I really want some break in between the lip and the teeth. Now the mouth is kind of curved, so we're going to brush a light gray as we get farther away a little deeper. This will just show the slight curve in the teeth. If you want, you can pull a line down, like a little gray line to define some of those teeth. I think you can go either way with it. Sometimes it's cool, I think, when you don't. I'm going to define the top of the bottom lip, just to show separation on the teeth. The bottom set of teeth is so small, I'm really just going to leave it alone. I don't want to make it too busy with lines. And then we're going to give the top lip some value. Just kind of doing small circles here. And then we're going to push this back under the top lip by just graying it out a little bit. Just dip into my shading solution for some of this lighter stuff, just to give it a little push back there. Same thing to the other side. Just set it back in there a little. Makes the chin stick out more. A little detail on the chin. How we doing, Chris?
Yeah, there you go.
Brushing it. Guys, it's always important to have a good cheerleader by your side. Make you feel good about what you're doing. Alright, let's get into the nose. What's first? Nostrils, that's right. Because they're black. Then we're going to define the true bottom of the nose. We're just going to flick down, put this cool drop shadow on top of the lip. And then we're going to brush a big shadow over the whole thing. This will leave the shadow underneath a little darker. It'll define the bottom of the nose, kind of cuts it in half. Which I think is a pretty cool effect for the nose. It's simple, but it gets the job done. A lot of people use this, especially in Neo. Just kind of cutting the nose in half like that. Always come back to the sides of the nose, where the nostrils are, and make them a little bit more defined. Give that crease in there. Get this little shadow in here to show that the top lip is curved. A little more. It's a little light. Cool. I'm going to define this divide in the nose a little more. Just the top part of it. Cool. Now we'll get to the eyes. In this case, the eyes are closed, so we're going to hit this top lash. This darkest part is black. Some eyelashes in there. And then we have the bottom of the eyelid, the bottom of the ball there. We'll go into a lighter gray and flick up from it. And then I have this shade marked out that kind of cuts the nose. It's also kind of in the place of an eyebrow here. She's got this cool hat. So I'm just going to separate the hat from the face. And then the cheek rounds. So I'm going to be flicking up now from my shade so that I have a safe starting spot to flick. And then I'm going to start to flick it into the eye to build that little crease. This will help kind of round out the top of the cheek, the lighter part of the cheek, and then it'll also help develop our eye socket. This one I'm going to build slow and steady because we are in kind of the lighter portion of the cheek, the part that's supposed to be lighter, so I don't want to make it too dark. So I'd rather hit it a bunch of times, just gently lighting it, than overdo it. Cool, looking good. And actually this part comes all the way over here. And now I'm just building out the eye. I left it pretty open. I just wanted to kind of have fun with it. Do it based off the reference. So there wasn't as much stencil in there. Really with the eye, it's like in the corners, the left corner, the right corner. As long as those are like a little darker and help show the eye socket, you're pretty good. And then you leave a little light part on the cheek there. You'd be in alright shape. Move on to the other side. We do kind of like a defining line, showing us like where the forehead starts, the nose ends. Get our black, we'll put our eyelash in. And pretty much the same thing. Put a little bottom of the eye there, we'll flick up from it. We'll create the round top lid. Do a little darker on the outside. I'm going to brush this side of the nose in. Show a little more separation. Flick up to round the cheek. Come back over the nose. Same techniques at the other side. Flicking up, rounding the cheek. And then we'll bring it back into the eye, right here. And define that a little bit more. Create some depth. Brush out from this side, separate from the cool hat. What do you think of that hat, Fritz?
Pretty sick.
Pretty sick. Is she wearing it backwards or forwards? Now I'm going to flick out from these eyebrow shadows across the nose. This is kind of how I push in the bridge of the nose without disrupting the face too much. And that allows the front or the tip of the nose to stick out a little bit more. So if I just brush over the top, here is its deepest, and then it opens back up into the forehead. And this is a cool effect to help make the nose stick out, the tip of the nose. You can do the same for the sides here, just like lightly, just to show that the tip of the nose is the lightest part to stick out, right? Wow, look guys, we did it. Pretty sick. I'm gonna brush down just a little bit more on here. I don't want too much open skin in the forehead. So now I'm gonna look at this face and decide what I think are the most defining features. So the mouth, nostrils, eyes, and those sharp cheeks, I'm gonna hit them with black just to over define them a little bit more so that they stay longer over time. This is our foundation of the small piece, and if these things stay intact, we will get a longer life out of the tattoo. So even though it might be a little darker than the reference, I want to over exaggerate it, just in this case with it being small, so it holds up. Just kind of like bumping the contrast. Same thing on this one. Cool. We got a face. Let me clean that off so you guys can see. Nice. And we're essentially just going to do that to all the rest of them. You know what they say. No face, no case. Guys.
I mean, what's the worst that's gonna happen?
Guys, we did it again. And what I mean is this take, because Chris wouldn't stop talking. Anyway, we finished the tattoo. I'm glad I got to walk you through some pieces of it, the faces, all the small faces, the high contrast. I'm thrilled with how this thing came out. Comes right into the castle. We have a really good stopping place on the outer sleeve today. We'll continue forward with another session to move into the top, into our Mad King. But yo, so far, thrilled with it. I was really going for something different. I thought doing a bunch of little faces, kind of crazy, townspeople, you know, into the castle, into the big face, was kind of the move. I'm happy and I'm very excited to see it finished. See you guys later.